that dramatically portrayed. That's quite interesting. Let's pray. Father God, I want to thank you once again for an opportunity just to share your word. And Lord, I just ask that you would help us now to sit in your presence, to feel your Holy Spirit, Lord, to learn from you. As was prayed earlier, Lord, I just pray that there'll be nothing that will impede us from hearing you, that our minds, our thoughts will be open to you, and our hearts will be open to you. God, may you be Lord of this service. And may any communication barriers be thrown down. May you be clearly seen. In Christ's name, amen. Well, good morning, church. I realize that we are moving toward the end of school. And we are preparing, many of you are preparing for finals and for other forms of testing. And so to prepare you for this, I've decided to give you a quiz. Aren't you happy? No. Try it. Okay, it's only 3 questions long. Here we go. A chubby man wishes to lose some weight. Don't look at me. A chubby man wishes to lose some weight. Does he, A, spend his free time in the gym? B, relax with coffee and a book at Dunkin' Donuts? Number 2, a man who wants to quit smoking has trouble because all the people at his work smoke around him. Does he, A, get a job at UCO? It's a smoke-free campus, right? Or B, go to work for Big Joe's Tobacco Emporium and Smoke Shop? 3, an alcoholic wants to stay sober. Does he, A, invite friends from his Alcoholic Anonymous group over to his house to watch the Thunder game on his big screen TV? Or B, go to his favorite bar to watch the game on the TV there? Now, if any of you put down B for any of those 3, in Christian love, I have to tell you this. You failed! I mean, really, you failed. Because quite frankly, those are stupid answers, right? We do not deliberately throw ourselves under the train. We don't lay down on the track and hope that the train's not going to run over us. That's not how it works. We don't put ourselves in temptation's way. Instead, we take steps to avoid that form of temptation. Our memory verse, Matthew 26:41, says this. Watch and pray, so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Like all of Christ's words, there's a lot of depth here. There's a lot of things that we could talk about. But some things that I want to look at just briefly here is, you've heard the expression, idle hands are the devil's workshop. Idle hands are the devil's workshop. What does that really mean? Well, let's say can we agree that we have some really good children in this church? I mean, some lovely children, right? The ones that are out in Sunday school. Lovely kids. Okay? Let me give you an example. Let's say that we took some of those lovely kids and we put them in here in the sanctuary. Just left them here. And then the rest of us went to hold a meeting. What do you think would happen?
It's going to be wild and crazy.
Going to be wild and crazy, and that is an understatement. Really, quite frankly. That drum set would be no more. But if those same children were given something that they enjoyed and constructive to do, that would entertain them, the drum set might survive, right? Because they had something to do at the time. See, what Christ is teaching here, he's telling his disciples to be active in the moment, to watch and pray, so that you don't fall into temptation. To watch and pray, to be actively doing something to keep that focus there. Temptation is most effective, frankly, when we lose focus. When we lose our focus on what we should be doing. Oftentimes I spend a lot of time on my computer. I spend time writing sermons, I spend time writing book reviews, various things like that. And sometimes when I'm really focused and everything's flowing, it's great. You know, type, everything's going great. But have you ever experienced this? You're working on a paper, and all of a sudden you hit a roadblock, like writer's block, like right in the face. You ever done that? Yeah. Okay? So you're writing along, suddenly you hit writer's block, and you just sit there. Well, what happens when you lose your focus? I'll tell you what happens to me when I lose my focus. I'm sitting there, tap, and I'm losing my focus, and all of a sudden, I heard something in the kitchen. I don't know what it is in the kitchen, but I better go investigate. And when I go into the kitchen, what do I find in the kitchen? Oh, I find someone left some snacks in here. Well, it would be bad to just leave them there, right? I should take them with me and have them join me. Maybe they'll help me write my sermon, right? And so I bring them, and as I'm writing and dealing with writer's block, right? Hey, this is work related. Well, seriously, what happens? We lose our focus, and when we lose our focus, we fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Temptation can be a very powerful and easy trap to fall into, but are we totally helpless against it? I mean, are we out there and we just can't do anything against temptation? It might help if we understood it better. But that may also reveal what this sermon title is about. The uncomfortable truth about temptation. The uncomfortable truth about temptation. Question, are you brave enough to hear this? If not, you can leave. Well, not really. But are you brave enough to hear the uncomfortable truth about temptation? Hang on. But first, a few facts. I want to, as our president says, I want to be perfectly clear. Okay? I want to be perfectly clear on something. Temptation is not sin. Temptation is not sin. Yielding to it can be. Actually, temptation, if you do a word study in the Greek, temptation in the New Testament comes from a Greek verb called pirazo. Pirazo means to tempt, but it also means to test or to examine. Now, some of you are going to say, hey, when I'm tested, that's a bad thing. But it's not necessarily, is it? Testing doesn't have to be. Usually this word is used negatively in the New Testament, but occasionally it's used positively in the New Testament. In fact, Christ even is using it at one point when talking to one of his disciples, and you know that he is not trying to trip his disciple up. Okay? There's no evil intent there. But that's the big thing. See, test, examine. The key is, what is the intent? When you test or when you examine, are you trying to trip someone up? Are you trying to do something evil, or are you trying to do something for good? That's the key. So temptation, basically by itself, is not bad. However, what we see in the Bible a lot of times, and we see in life, is negative temptation. Things that are really there because they're basically a lure filled with hooks. a lure designed to pull you away from something good and to lead you into evil. Now, for a temptation to work, though, basically, for a temptation to work, it has to have an attraction for us. It has to have something that's going to pull us in. To give you an example of how this works sometimes, let's say that, and this is from real life, I had an experience similar to this. You're in a car with a girl, and the girl starts to share with you. And she starts to share some really painful moments, and she begins to cry. What are you going to do? Okay? As a guy, you like her as a friend. Part of you, you're tempted to reach out and give her a hug. Now, are you tempted to reach out and give her a hug because you're concerned for her and because you want to comfort her? Or are you tempted to give her a hug because you're thinking, hey, you know, maybe this can lead to something. Maybe this can lead to second base, or, you know, I mean, is there a hidden advantage that you're trying to take over this girl in her moment of weakness? You see the difference? The difference between something that is good. Comforting somebody, giving somebody a hug when they're crying is a good thing. But what is the reason behind it? What is the intent behind what you're doing? You know, fishing, some people like to go fishing. They enjoy it. And you go down to the bait shop, or you go down to Walmart or wherever, and you look at all the different things they have there. You know, different things to attract different kinds of fish. Right? And sometimes it's the really stinky bait, and sometimes it's the nice shiny lure, and sometimes for fly fishing it's a really decorative fly, etc. But with all of those things, what do they also have either attached or you're supposed to attach it to? A hook, right? Now, unless a fish is really, really dumb and really, really hungry, if you take an unbaited hook and cast it out in the water, the fish is not going to go for it. They sometimes do if they're really hungry. But normally, the fish is not going to go for the hook. No, they're going for the bait because the bait is a good thing. Right? It's something that they need food. It looks good to eat. I'm going for it. The fish go for the bait, not the hook. With temptation, we tend to be attracted to something that we may feel is a felt need. It's something that really is touching us in an area. And we could go into a long counseling session. We could talk about that and how it revolves around sex and internet porn and various kinds of things. But the point is there's something positive there that is attracting us. But embedded in it are hooks that lead us into disaster and to death. Often it's a good thing, but of the wrong time, the wrong place, or the wrong manner. This week's Time magazine, the very front of it, the cover story is an article on porn, on internet pornography, and the problem that it is. The thing is that they're not saying that sex or sexual attraction is the problem. But what the problem is the manner. In other words, the presentation or with who that it is being engaged in. The timing, is it before marriage? And the place, okay? Is it out of marriage? Is it not in the bonds of marriage? Etc. See, those kinds of, it's not the sex, it's not the sexual attraction, it's the manner and the time and the place that are the hooks. Those are the problems that we run into in these kinds of things. And those are the hooks that lead to sin and death. We've talked about David, we've talked about his life, but if you want to get really into it and really examine David's life, think about it. When David fell with Bathsheba, what was going on? David was supposed to be, it said it was during the time when the kings went out to war. David didn't go for that season for whatever reason. Okay? So he had idle hands, right? The devil's workshop. He was not doing what he's supposed to do. He's tooling around the palace. Everyone's out doing the war. I guess I could polish my gemstones, so my crown needs a little varnish. And then he happens to look out, and lo and behold, who's on a rooftop nearby? Bathsheba. Bathing. Okay? So, he falls with Bathsheba basically because of timing, manner, and place. He's basically in the wrong place, at the wrong time, wrong manner, wrong person, wrong timing involved in all of this. In other words, if he had been doing what he was supposed to be doing, if he hadn't allowed himself to be taking that second look, maybe he could have resisted the temptation. Question is, when we think about temptation, you might say, so are we helpless against it? Is temptation so strong? Are we just like basically dumb fish? There's nothing that we can do about it? No. Remember what it says in 1 Corinthians 10:13. It says, no temptation has overtaken you except what is common to mankind. And God is faithful. Say that with me. And God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, He will also provide a way out so that you can endure it. He promises to provide a way out so that you can endure it. Because He's faithful, because He loves us. See, God is not the author of sin. God is not creating temptation to trip you up. No, God is saying basically, hey, there is no temptation out there that you can't endure, and that I will provide a way to help you out of it. But some are going to say, hey, you know, it's not fair that temptation even exists. I mean, if temptation didn't exist, I wouldn't sin. It's not fair. Hey, whoever said sin plays fair? Whoever said sin plays fair? Not only that, we welcomed sin in, didn't we? In the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve, they welcomed sin in. And because of that, we have sin in our lives. Yeah, sin is not fair. Sin doesn't play fair. And temptation can be hard to resist. But here's the key. We must stop playing the blame game. We do it a lot, don't we? We must stop playing the blame game. Kids do it, don't they? You ever seen a bunch of kids, they get in trouble? Let's say that the kids we were talking about, right? Pastor Lau comes in, the drum set is ruined. Okay? Now, are these kids going to go, little Leo or Joel or whoever going to go, I did it. I did it. Punish me. Really? He did it! She did it! They did it! Never comes in. Right? Everyone else is to blame. Parents are to blame. The reason I'm the way I am is I had bad parents. I had a bad upbringing. Society has done it to me. This is why I'm this way, because society has made me who I am. I'm a victim. Really? But we play that card. The I'm a victim card is everybody else's fault. We also try to blame God. God, you made me this way. You made me this is why I'm this way. But this is what James says in James 1:13. When tempted, no one should say, God is tempting me, for God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does He tempt anyone. You catch that? Now, would it make sense if God is good that God would tempt someone to evil? Of course not. That's crazy. That would be against God's nature. So how in the world can we even try to blame God for what's going on in our own hearts. And if we can't blame God, who else do we blame? Well, sometimes we try to blame the devil. The devil made me do it. The devil's bad. No question. But did the devil make you do it? Several years ago, back in the early 70s, there was a comedian by the name of Flip Wilson. Really funny guy. And Flip Wilson had a routine with a lady by the name of Geraldine, etc., that was always saying, "The devil made me do it." Well, I don't want to just tell you about that. I want you to actually hear a little bit for yourself. So we're going to play a clip. Listen carefully. The video is not so great, but listen to the words. Flip Wilson talking about it.
So she walks in the house, the Rev says, "Another dress? You bought another dress? This is ridiculous. It's the third dress this week." And his wife tells him, "The devil made me buy this dress." He said, "I didn't want to buy no dress. The devil kept following me. I was going down the street going, and the devil kept following me, and he kept telling me how good I look." Rev said, "I'm not going for that." He said, "Every time you do something wrong, you blame it on the devil." So you blame it on the devil when you ran the car to the side of the church. It was the devil. You wasn't there. How do you know? You grabbed the steering wheel out of my hand. I said, "Well, why didn't you step on the brake?" Said, "Because when he grabbed the steering wheel, I tried to kick him. I can't kick him and step on the brake at the same time." Said, "We had a big fight. And that's why I was in the back seat when y'all got the car." Rick said, "Well, how did the devil get you to buy the dress?" She said, "I was going out and and the devil sneaked up behind me. I heard him tell it, so you know, I didn't want to look around because I know it was the devil, you know." So the devil came up behind me, he said, "Say, Mama, look at the dress in the window." He said, "That's your size, too." He said, "It's on sale, too. Got all them flowers in it like you like, you know. So why don't you treat yourself to that dress?" And I told him, "You better cut that out, devil. I already bought 2 dresses this week. I'm not going to buy no dress. I'm not even going to look at it." The devil said, "Well, why don't you try it on?" So you're not going to charge them to try it on. But that's free. You owe yourself a try on. I said, "Devil, you better leave me alone." And he shoved me in the door. The devil just shoved me in that door. He pushed me in the door. I said, "Devil, stop it, please." Then he shoved me over to where the dress was. I said, "Cut it out, devil." Then he threatened me and made me try it on. Devil said, "You gonna buy that dress?" I said, "I'm not buying no dress, devil." And he pulled a gun. Devil pulled a gun, he threatened me and made me sign your name to a check. First said, "Oh, so how come every time the devil makes you do something, it's something for your benefit? When's the devil going to do me a favor?" His wife comes, "He did already. I asked the devil about that. He said if it wasn't for him, you wouldn't even have a job."
Flip Wilson. So we do blame the devil. We blame God, and if not God or the devil, we blame others, such as we talked about, our parents, our teachers, our culture, our environment. There are even some religions out there that blame women for men having sexual thoughts and falling into lust or rape or various other crimes. It's the woman's fault. If you girls wouldn't look so attractive, we wouldn't sin. We're innocent. It's you girls that are the problem. Really? That just doesn't make sense. So instead of blaming God, instead of blaming the devil, instead of blaming other people around us, how about finding the true culprit? Finding the true culprit. Remember, I asked if you were brave? Here comes the uncomfortable truth about temptation. James 1:14. But each person is tempted when they are dragged away by their own evil desire and enticed. When they're dragged away by society? No, dragged away by God? Dragged away by the devil? Dragged away by women? No. Dragged away by their own evil desire and enticed. Catch that? Our own evil desire. Nobody else. Back when I was growing up in the 60s and the 70s and listening to rock music, there was lots of different things that I could listen to, a lot of things my friends listened to. But one of the, after a while, I just kind of got tired of Baby Baby and I Want You, and guitars screaming so loud they made my ears bleed. Okay? I got tired of that, and I turned to a rock group called Genesis because I liked their lyrics and I liked the instrumentation, etc. And in probably my favorite album by Genesis, and then there were three, there's a song called The Lady Lies. And in this song, it talks about a guy who hears this scream and he grabs his sword because he thinks he's a warrior, and he goes out and he takes on the monster that's attacking this woman. But we actually know that this woman is a demon in disguise who is there to lure him to Demon's Lair. Now when he gets there, he takes her home gallantly, and he gets to where her cottage is, and she invites him inside with a little bit of seduction involved. And, he's heard about this little cottage in the glade, and they tell stories about that. So he knows that he's going into danger. He knows it's wrong. But listen to what it says. Some men never listen, and others never learn. But why this man did as he did, only he will ever know. He knew he was walking into a waiting trap, neatly set up for him with a bait so richly wrapped. So he went inside there to take on what he found, but he never escaped them. For who can escape what he desires? The thing is when we allow ourselves to deliberately walk into temptation, when we put a rock in front of the pathway that God has given us to be able to escape temptation, guess what? You're not going to escape it. See, God will give us a way out. But if we block that way, if we try to say, no, I can resist in my own strength, you'll fail. You'll fail. Because that temptation, those hooks, are too strong for you. And that's why our faithful God has given us ways out, given us techniques to be able to avoid this. When we linger in front of the website, when we linger in front of the magazine stand with stuff there, when we take that second look, when we walk into the candy shop on a diet and just stand there and look at the candy, after a while, we're going to reach into the wallet and we're going to buy just a little something. We're just going to take one little look. That's the way the hook gets set. The word here, enticed, basically is the Greek word deliazo, which means lured, tempted, lured, then trapped by the bait. Trapped by the bait. How many of you have seen the movie Finding Nemo? Most of you. Okay? You remember the scene in Finding Nemo, toward the beginning, where Nemo is with his school friends, and they've kind of wandered away, floated away. It's under the ocean. Floated away, and there's this, they see the open water, the open sea, and they see this boat up there. And they're kind of daring each other. I can go touch the boat, and all this kind of stuff. And then a situation arises between Nemo and his dad where Nemo feels he needs to prove his independence, prove his ability to stand on his own, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But what happens is Nemo succumbs to the temptation, knowing that it's dangerous, but not really caring at that point. And he goes to the boat, and he's trapped. See, at this point, Nemo, like us, starts understanding truth's consequences. Starts to understanding truth's consequences. And this can be a terrible awakening when all of a sudden we find ourselves trapped. When I was in high school, I was a senior, there was this junior girl that I was kind of attracted to. I thought she might be nice to date. And so I got up the courage and I asked her out. She said yes. But I needed to meet her mom first. So I went to meet her mom. And we had a nice conversation. She asked me, about what church I went to and everything. And we talked about that for a while. And she agreed to let me date her daughter. Well, I didn't know where to take her. But all my friends were going to this party's place, kind of a parking spot where, and I'm a gentleman. Really, in my mind, there was nothing going to happen there. But I was tempted to go there because if I went there, my friends would think I was cool. Right? My friends would think I was cool. And so I wanted to be respected. And so I gave into the temptation and I invited her to go with me to this spot. Well, back in the day of payphones, before we had cell phones, I was in North Park Mall and I needed to confirm the time that I was going to pick this girl up. So I went to the payphone and called her up. And she said, "My mom needs to talk to you." So I started to talk to Renee's mom. And Renee cut a brand new hole in my body over the phone. No, Renee's mom, excuse me. Renee ripped me up one side and down the other, saying, "I thought you were a Christian. Is this how a Christian acts? No, you may not date my daughter." Whew. I got off lucky. All I got was a ton of embarrassment and a lesson. But too many times it can be so much worse. James 1:16. Don't be deceived, my dear brothers and sisters. There is more to this. I know there's more to this. All right. James 1:16. Oh, 1:15. I'm sorry. It is my fault again, Grace. 1:15. Okay. It says, "Then after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is full grown, gives birth to death." Once again. "Then after desire is conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is full grown, gives birth to death." See, like I said, I got off lucky. But oftentimes, we don't. When we succumb to the temptations that are out there. So you might say, well, so all I need to do to conquer temptation is to avoid doing what I'm tempted to do that's wrong, right? Wrong. We can allow temptation to lead us to sin before we even get out of our armchairs. Well, let's look at Matthew 5:27-28. Jesus is saying, you've heard that it was said you shall not commit adultery. But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. In other words, when we take that second look, when we allow that evil desire to come to the forefront, that's when we've fallen. We just completed going into the sin of death and everything else after we move forward physically. But really, quite frankly, we've already fallen. That evil desire has already grabbed us. It has already done its soul damage within us. So, we need to not allow our thoughts to jump past recognition of the temptation, the evil desire. Otherwise, we become entrapped. We must, as Paul says, take captive every thought and make it obedient to Christ. But to be successful in this, we must work on developing an action plan. Developing an action plan. You know, right now we're in the midst of campaign season. If you've been following the news, you are going to hear every day something about the presidential candidates. Right? Now, these presidential candidates, by the way, did not decide, oh, I think I'm going to run for president, put their name on the ballot, get enough votes for it, and then just sit back. It's not how you win an election. No, they have a strategy. They have an action plan. They have worked very, very hard and are continually to tweak it and develop it to try to win the election. Now, they don't necessarily do it in the right way, but they have an action plan to win the battle. Our action plan, the beginning one, is don't put yourself in a place to fall. Don't put yourself in that place to fall. You know that the party is going to have a lot of drinking at it, and that is really not what you need to be doing. Don't go to the party. You say, well, you know, I have to use the internet for work all the time, etc., and there's pornography on the internet, and it's going to trap me, etc. You know what? They've got accountability software out there that you can download on your internet, and then you can find an accountability partner who will be able to track what kind of sites you've gone to. Okay? You can do this. You can protect yourself, but you have to be willing to take the steps necessary. You say, every time I go to the store, I just buy a bunch of snack food. Guess what? Take a friend with you. Take a friend with you to the store and ask that person to basically stop you from buying the Twinkies. Say, you know, when you go for the fruit pie. Whatever. Okay? And if you have a dessert problem, ask for their permission. If you can call them and say, that chocolate pie in the refrigerator is calling me, help! You know? Do something. Take a step necessary to avoid the temptation. Because if you go too far into it, you will fall. But best of all is the advice, the action plan given in James 4, 7 through 10. It says this, it says, submit yourselves unto God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Come near to God, he will come near to you. Wash your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. Grieve, mourn, and wail. Change your laughter to mourning and your joy to gloom. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will lift you up. Submitting requires putting our focus on his plan, his will, and not being distracted by other things. When our focus is right, it is much easier to resist the devil and the temptations dangled before us. And as we humble ourselves before our God, He will lift us up. Temptation is tough to resist. But with God on our side, we can overcome. Let's pray. Father, I thank you that you're faithful. I thank you that you love us so much that when temptation comes, when the sin behind it, which is our own fault because it was brought into the world by mankind, Lord, I thank you that you're faithful and good and that you provide us a way out of it. You give us the ability to go on the path that you've set to escape temptation. So Lord, I just pray that we will be aware of that. That we will not allow ourselves to fall into the traps. Lord, there's so many pitfalls around us in our daily lives. Help us to see the hooks behind the temptations, Lord. Help us to realize the danger in going too far. And instead, Lord, help us to submit ourselves to you. Help us to humble ourselves before you, Lord. Help us to take that action that you've recommended, Lord, of keeping our focus on you, of watching and praying, of being totally sold out for God. So that when temptation does come, we won't be snared by it. In Christ's name.
I think we'll be taking our tithes and offering now, so ushers.